Time for a tool review. Alright, I've tried to film a tool review on this thing like 18 times and messed it up for various reasons. I keep thinking I have time to do it and then I don't finish and then all this stuff. So I got time. We're gonna get through it. This is for bleeding your brakes. Totally standalone. You can do it yourself at home with no electricity, no air, no nothing. All you need is brake fluid in this kit and you can do it. I've had to use it a couple times for work already and I'm about to demonstrate it on my Subaru so you guys can see what it's all about. Bring the Subaru in. Hey, first of all, this is future me halfway through this video, but I'm coming back to you at the beginning to tell you two things. One, I appreciate you. Two, if you could follow along and subscribe and cool stuff like that, that'd be awesome. If you want to cop some cool merch, I wouldn't mind that either. Let's get back to the video. Alright, so as I said, we're finally doing the tool review on this bad boy, and I've already used it a couple times, but we can pretend I'm unboxing it. Holy crap, I just heard UPS come. I got a new thing to do and look at. Check this out. Whoa, what? Brand new. This is so cool. It just came. Haven't ever opened this before. What? That's super cool. What? This comes dirty? That's sick. Whoa. What? It already is set up and has brake fluid in it? This is fantastic. So sick. What? Alright, cool. Now that we got that out of the way, let's check this tool out. Alrighty everyone, so gonna do a full review on this today. I'm gonna start off with just going over everything that comes in the box and my immediate reaction to the quality of it. And then I'll go over how you set it up when you take it out of the box, what everything in here is actually for, and then I will show you how to hook it up to the car, and we'll do a brake bleed on the silver Subaru, show you how it works, and I'll also give you some insight on what I've ran into using it a couple times at work and what I think of it overall. And of course, rating out of 100, that's what I'll give you. That's how we'll do this. Alright, so let's get into it. So when you pull this out of the box, this is everything that's in there. There's this case, there's the instructions. These might actually come in that case, I can't remember. But these two items, and the tank, and the hose. So the hose is separate, you just have to put it on the tank. See if the quick disconnect. So literally you get it, all you have to do is plug this hose in here. Make sure that snaps back up. The hose already has this fitting on it. You can just close it off or open it up, and it already has this fitting on it. So again, this hose comes complete just like this. Pop it into the quick disconnect and you're good to go. So the point of this fitting is just to, you can close the hose off, and that's kind of nice so that when you're done with the job, it prevents the whole hose from just dripping out or something like that, which is kind of cool. So hose comes as one piece, pop it on, and you're good to go. Instructions, probably helpful. I haven't looked at them. If you feel the need to look at them, then I didn't do my job in this video. But seriously, this thing's super easy to use, so let's keep going. Alright, so up here you got your legend, key, whatever you want to call this thing. Tells you which adapter you will need for your vehicle. Very helpful. So as you can see, it has the adapter name, the type of adapter, and application. So if you have a Toyota, you're going to go with that first one, MVA 800. so on and so forth. I've used 810 and 808. Those are the two I've used. 808 being for the Subaru, and 810 being for the Acura that I just worked on. So I've used those two. Find your make and model, find the adapter, and then come down to this picture and select the correct adapter. And that shows you how to set up the hard one. This picture looks a little intimidating, but don't worry, it's only for MVA 810, which is what I had to use on the Acura Legend, 1993 Acura Legend. But most vehicles, you'll just need the other adapter, and they're simply a screw type, just like a reservoir cap. Again, this is extremely necessary, super helpful. Find your vehicle, find the cap you need, come down here, figure out what cap it is, and then pick it up. So as you can see, there's this little extra piece in here. Fluid dispensing wand, so it is for dispensing. I guess if you got a hard to reach place or you just want to top off the reservoir afterwards, you could use this fluid dispensing wand. I've never used it. Don't know if I'll need to. Anyways, back to this, where again, this case looks just like that picture. So as I said, most of these are normal screw types, just like your reservoir caps. This is the one I used. You can see it has brake fluid on it. But there are different types of thread. See, this one's got a full thread. This one's got 3 tabs and a different depth. So this is a generic kit that will fit most vehicles, which is pretty cool. That MV810 pictured here is this bad boy, and it's for reservoirs that there isn't a good universal cap for. So obviously these caps are in the case because they fit a whole bunch of vehicles, so it was worth it for them to make a generic cap for the kit. Some vehicles that are weirdly unique is what this cap is for. So the Acura Legend that I worked on had a gigantic cap. It was probably twice as big as these. So I had to use this one. And as you can see, there's no threads or anything. This simply is a giant rubber cone. So it'll fit different size reservoir lids. And you simply squish it on there with this tightening device, these two guys, and the chain, and these guys. Now that sounds intimidating. When I first saw that I had to use this one for the Acura, I thought to myself, what in the But it's actually super easy. You set it up just like this picture says. You set the cap on top of the reservoir, and then you wrap the chain underneath. You run the hooks through the cap. You run the hooks through the tightening device, put the little twisty guys on the hooks, and then use the tightening device. And now that I've said it out loud, it still sounds intimidating like a lot, but it's pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick run through on how to use this big cap that does not screw on. It's just the MV810, so if you don't have Acura, Honda, Isuzu, Suzuki, Mitsubishi, if you don't have that giant reservoir lid or anything, then don't worry about this and skip this part of the video. Because I'm going to show you how to use this, but this ridiculous setup with all of these and these is only for this cap. The rest of the makes and models, you simply thread it on. So if you're going to use one of these caps, you can skip this part of the video. Alright, so here's the gist of it. You have the chain going underneath the reservoir. You have it hooked on this metal hook. You have the metal hook guided through here, and this is sitting on the opening of the reservoir. And then you have this guy tightened down to here, just snug. This isn't what you're getting tight with. Just snug onto here. And then this guy is pushing on the cap. So everything's tight, and as you tighten this, it's gonna pull up and push this cap further down. So what I did is I started snug, and then I started to pressurize the system. I got a little bit of leak, so I gave this, 3 more turns, and then it stopped leaking. So I knew I was good. But if you set this up, and don't pay attention to that side, I was just holding it in place. If you tighten this up, you set it up correctly, and it starts to leak, and you say, hey, what the heck? I thought I did it right. First of all, make sure this is flat. It needs to be flat this way and this way. So just look all the way around it. Make sure it's level and flat. And if it is, and you're still leaking, tighten this down. A couple more turns. Pressurize again. And then keep doing that until it doesn't leak. If it's ridiculously feels like you're going to break the reservoir, you did something wrong. Let's start over. And of course, this fitting on here is a quick release. Take the end of this hose, pop it right on there, and you're good to go. I'll show you with another cap, just so you know how easy it is. That easy, it takes 5 seconds, and this is literally the entire tool. Super easy to use. Wow, that got shot off. Alrighty, so again, I'm doing the Subaru today. Wait, right here. Use this one. Put it on here. That's all it is, quick little push. And I have probably enough brake fluid in here just for demonstration. But when you unbox it, you put the hose on, you find your correct adapter, you put your adapter on, and then you fill this with fluid. That's all you need to do. It's literally all of the steps. Alright, I'm a little bit further down in the video, but I'm gonna insert this earlier. Alright, so you got your brake fluid bottle, right? Looks something like this. When you get this, don't pour the whole thing in the tool. I have a little bit left in both of these, right? So use more than half the bottle, probably 3/4 of the bottle, put into the tool, and leave about 1/4 of the bottle left. Reason being, when you're done, sometimes when you are done, you turn the tool off, you release the pressure on the tool, it will suck a little bit of brake fluid back out of the reservoir. You'll take the tool off, you think you're done, and then the reservoir is just a little bit low. So leave a little bit of fluid extra, just in case you need to top off the reservoir when you're done. But so far, the couple times I've used this tool, I haven't had to. Now the hose is plenty long to set this on the ground, because you're going to need to pump it up, so having it on the ground is nice. And we'll install this cap on the car. Brake fluid's not the best for paint, so fender cover or blanket or old towel or something is good measure. Especially because there's this metal adapter that's gonna hit like right here. So I'll probably cover this with something in a second. Bing bang boom, I got my work fender cover on the vehicle. That way I don't scratch nothing. You know, this is a freshly painted fender I painted myself, so don't wanna get up, you know what I mean? I've actually been trying to get my own fender covers made, so follow along on Instagram and stuff for updates on that, because I would love to have some of these with Imperium Racing on them, the logo and whatnot. And this one's actually ideal because it's got little tiny pockets. You probably put a rag in there, but you don't really want to put anything else in there because it'll make it too heavy and fall off the vehicle. But this one's got magnets on it. Keep it in place. Yeah, you can still kind of knock it off, but the magnets are way better than nothing. And it's nice and soft on the underside, good material on the outside, and it's not super thick and heavy, so it doesn't fall off easily. Anyways, this one's pretty sweet, and I should have my own soon. Alrighty, so just in case you're not absolutely super familiar with your vehicle, we are looking for the brake fluid reservoir. On pretty much every car, your brake fluid reservoir is going to be attached to your brake booster. It's back there. It's a little dark, but it's back there. And all of the above are attached to the brake pedal in the car, meaning if you're looking for this, it's going to be right where your brake pedal is. See? Driver's seat, steering wheel, brake booster, brake pedal, brake master cylinder. It's usually going to be sitting on top of a bad boy. Looks like that with a couple lines going off of it. We don't give a shit about that right now. Don't worry about that. But this is what we're looking for. Take that cap off. Check it. Make sure it looks similar to the adapter, because it should. A little 3-prong, pretty shallow. I'm gonna set that right there so I don't lose it. 3-prong, pretty shallow. And we're gonna screw this on. Now, you can screw the cap on and then attach the hose, or you can attach and screw it on. It doesn't really matter because this spins. So when you put it on, kind of turn it lefty-loosey until it settles down. There we go. Now it's all the way down. Now I can righty-tighty to tighten it. That's all it takes. She's good to go. I know it feels a little bit loose. That's totally okay. As soon as we start to pressurize this, it's probably sealed all the way right now. It just feels loose. But as soon as we start to pressurize it, it's going to push itself and seal anyways, so it'll be fine. Because trust me, if this is not a good seal, it will leak brake fluid all out right here, and you will know right away, or you'll know when you see it dripping on the ground, which takes a couple minutes. But this will be fine. Yes, it feels a little loose. That's totally okay. All right, since we got it hooked up, I'm gonna open this valve. That is now open. And we're gonna pressurize this. So a couple details on pressurizing this. This is the gauge we're looking for. If you read the canister label here, it says to not go above 20. And as you can see on the gauge, 20 is where it goes from green to red. So if you're doing your brakes, I recommend staying between 15 and 20. You don't want to go over 20 and ruin your tool or ruin something else. And you also don't want to be too low to where there's not enough pressure, so when you have the bleeder open, you're letting air in. Now, if you go above 15, it seems to last for multiple wheels, as in you can bleed one wheel, come over and check it, and it's still pretty high. So get in between 15 and 20, and then just visually check this gauge after each wheel, because you don't want to just do all four, never look at this, and then realize there's no pressure left and you've been sucking in air. So get over 15, bleed one wheel, come and check it. If it's under 15, get it back between 15 and 20. Once you're done, this will be your guy to release all the pressure. You want to release this pressure before you unscrew it up here. Otherwise, it will be pressurized and you will unscrew that and it will blow brake fluid everywhere. We've all done it before and it's not fun. Let's get this pressurized. Alrighty, I am just in between 15 and 20, so that's totally fine. As you can see, brake fluid level went down a little bit, but there's still plenty of fluid in there. And our line basically full of fluid, which is good. And as I said, there's nothing leaking up here. You can feel now this cap is not loose. It is, well, this piece moves a little bit, but the cap is totally snug now, which is what I was saying before. As it pressurizes, it'll kind of seal itself. So totally fine, because we're not leaking any fluid, which means we're sealed. You could also just leave it for a minute if you're questioning it and just look at this gauge. If that gauge doesn't go down, then you're not losing pressure, so you're all sealed up, which is good. So we are all pressurized. We got fluid in there. This is pressurized. There's fluid in there. And now we can take the wheels off. You're going to crack the bleeder loose and let a little bit of fluid come out. You want to let it come out until you get clean fluid and then shut it down. And that's basically it. As I said, after you get the wheels off, what we're going to do is you want to start farthest away from the reservoir. That being because if you start farthest away, it's going to be the longest brake line. It's going to be the most dirty fluid. So you kind of get the most out first, and then as you work your way back closer to the reservoir, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And that's just the best way to do it and gets it the most clean, and it's also the quickest. So I live in America. This car is left-hand drive, which means we're starting on the right rear. After that, we're going to go to the left rear. After that, we're going to go to the right front. And then we're going to finish at the driver front tire, and that's going to be closest to the reservoir, obviously. The right rear, it'll take maybe a minute, a couple minutes to get clean fluid, and it'll be a little shorter here, a little shorter here, a little shorter here. Dink, 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 dink. Alrighty, so a quick overview just in case you're not familiar with brakes and bleeding, which I hope if you're going to try and bleed your own brakes, you're somewhat familiar. But you got your caliper, and every caliper will have a bleeder screw located on the top half of the caliper because we need the air to come out, so it needs to be at the top of the caliper. Some calipers have multiple bleeding screws. You don't really want to bleed from one on the bottom, but some fixed calipers, such as some AMG cars from Mercedes, have a bleeder screw on either side. If you're just doing the flush, you can kind of just do one and it'll get the dirty fluid out of the lines, that's fine. But if you have replaced the caliper and you're flushing because it's a brand new caliper, then you're going to want to do all of the bleeder screws that are on the caliper. And there's probably work instructions to tell you what order. But if it's a caliper you just put on and it's new and it has bleeders on both sides, you're going to want to do both of them. So most bleeder screws will have a little rubber cover on them. So we got to pull that off. Usually a pocket screwdriver is good to pop these off. Sometimes you can get them with your fingers. I always put it right here. Just don't lose it. But if you put it right here, make sure you don't knock it into whatever you're catching your fluid with. So there's our bleeder screw. It's just going to be a nut. I prefer to use a wrench on it rather than a socket because obviously if you use a socket, you're going to start having fluid come out, and it'll get your socket all covered. So I like to use a wrench, and if you have the car on a lift, you know, you can drain into a catcher, or you can put a tube on here. I'm just doing it on the ground. This is probably going to drain all over the caliper, so I'm going to use a hose, but it's personal preference. You can use a hose or not use a hose. This one's really small. Let's see if this fits. Focus, camera. No. Yeah. Yeah, there it is. Alright, that bad boy's on. I don't know what my camera's doing, but this little tiny hose worked, and then it's just going to drain right here and dump into this pan. So again, since I just do this on jack stands at home, at people's houses, whatever, just going straight into an oil catcher is totally fine, because your used brake fluid you want to put with dirty oil anyways. So I have 2 containers, one for dirty coolant or used coolant, and one for used oil, and this will go in the used oil container. So it's totally fine to use the oil catcher for this. But anyways, like I said, you don't have to use a hose. It's usually cleaner if you do though. And then I got my hose just popped up to here. So let's pressurize it, crack this loose, and show you what it's all about. Alrighty, so I'm gonna crack this loose. Most of the cars I've worked on have been either 10 millimeters or 8 for these bleeder screws. This one's a 10 on the Subaru. Crack that bad boy loose. See if we can get some fluid coming out of here. The only problem with this hose being so tight is as I loosen this, it's gonna spin the entire hose around. But it's okay. Nice little drippy drip. Not bad. I'm gonna turn this a little bit more so you can see that bad boy coming out. That's a pretty solid stream. That's about as much pressure as you'll get from this tool. The nice electric ones we had the dealer do put out more pressure, so it speeds it up a little bit, but this is still just fine. It's still totally doable. Once you get to the front, you know, it's slightly more pressurized, but this is fine. It's enough pressure to push out dirty fluid, push out air, so totally usable, super sick. So just let this go till it's clean. All right, now we're gonna tighten this back up. I'm gonna go by hand first, and then use the wrench. So you can torque these if you want. There's a torque spec for them. I personally hand tighten all of them. I'm gonna tell you to look up the torque spec, but you know how it goes. Just snug them up. Don't want to leave these loose. If you do, you'll find out pretty quickly when that pedal drops to the floor because you're leaking brake fluid. Good to go. Pop this guy off. I'm just gonna set it down in my pan so I can do the rest of the wheels. I mean, before you move the pan, if you want, you can brake clean this because, as I was about to say, you'll probably spill some when you're putting the tube on and off. The tube might leak a little bit. So brake clean it off, double check this again, make sure it's snug, perfect, clean it, put your little rubber cap back on, put the wheel back on, good to go. And then we're gonna move to the left rear, then the right front, and then the left front. Oh, we're gonna check our pressure like I was saying. I guarantee you it's still over 15. Yep, just over 15. So I'm gonna give it another pump. Cool. Alright guys, let me touch on a few more things and then we'll finish this video up. So, when you're bleeding the brakes, you might be wondering how much fluid to let out, stuff like that. Because if you haven't done it a million times, like someone like me, you might not be super comfortable or super familiar. When you're bleeding your brakes, textbook answer is let it bleed until clean fluid comes out of that line. That is the textbook answer. With a tool like this on the rear, that does take a little bit of time. It might take a full, I don't know, minute or two on the first wheel you do. That's fine. As long as you still have fluid in the bleeder and you still have pressure in the bleeder, meaning you're not pushing any air through the system, right? You need to have fluid in there and pressure in there. Otherwise, you're just pushing air or sucking air. So as long as you maintain those two things, fluid level and pressure, you can bleed as much as you want. When I worked at the dealer, like I said, our bleeders did create significantly more pressure, so it was a little bit faster, but I've heard people say 10 seconds a wheel, or no, they said 20 seconds a wheel. Some people do that, some people do like 5 seconds a wheel. So it really depends on what you want, but ideally you want to get all the dirty fluid out as much as you can, which isn't that hard. Yeah, the brake lines run throughout the whole car, but they're not very big, so there's not a whole lot of fluid in the brake system. So you get one of those normal big bottles and, you know, put 3/4 of it in there, push most of it through, you're going to get clean fluid through all the lines. So textbook answer is clean fluid. If you replace parts, not brake pads, but if you replace calipers, brake lines, stuff like that, you need to be looking for air bubbles coming out. So you're done once you don't get any more air bubbles. You know, give it 10, 20, 30 seconds where there's no bubbles at all, then you're good. And you'll know, you go drive the car, you'll know if there's air in there by the feel of the brake pedal. And if there's still air in there, you got to bleed again. And start off with more fluid, a whole bottle of more fluid in the bleeder if you replace something, okay? So more fluid, same process, but look for bubbles instead of clean fluid. You should be good. But either way, I highly recommend this tool for any brake bleeding, whether you're servicing, replacing parts, fixing a brake issue, like whatever you're doing. This thing's freaking fantastic. Like I said, I've used it on a couple brake jobs, used it on my own car now. Dude, it's sick. The quality of it seems pretty legit. I was worried about things like the little pressure release valve seems a little iffy, but so far it's still holding. I'm not sure if maybe you can get replacement parts for it. If it did go out, maybe you can get a new lid or something. But the seal on the lid is good. The container, you can tell, is like a thick, strong plastic. The connecting lines are good. You know, spring on here to keep it from bending too far to make this last a little bit longer. All the connections and fittings are on there are real strong and tough. Yeah, super happy with this tool, honestly. And 10 out of 10 would recommend, especially for the price point. I mean, I'd love to have one of the bleeders. I'll throw a picture up that we had at the dealer, but they're ridiculously expensive. So this thing's super cool. It's totally independent. Don't need to be plugged into nothing, which is why it's perfect for me being a mobile mechanic. And I really like it. So if I had to score, you know, tools on a 0 to 100 scale, I mean, for what this is, I'd say 100. If you have a shop and you have a whole bunch of money to blow, buy the other one. Slightly faster to like use and set up, but this is fantastic, honestly. So if you don't want to drop way too much money on the other one, this is amazing. If you made this far in the video, first of all, thank you. And second of all, if you want to subscribe, that'd be super cool. Let me know if you want to see any other videos on anything. Car stuff, repair stuff, tool review stuff, anything, let me know. I have a whole bunch more videos to edit on tool reviews, SEMA, car stuff, like an endless amount to get done. So I'm gonna keep putting videos out and doing cool stuff, so follow along if you like. Good job, Mighty Vac. 100 out of 100. I just wanna throw out one more piece of information. While you're doing a brake flush, just keep the car locked. It really doesn't matter on most cars, but just for a just-in-case scenario, just keep the car locked. Because some cars do have electronic parking brakes and weird stuff, and when you know, some newer cars, if you don't have the parking brake on, but then you open the door, you lock it or something, it might throw the rear parking brake on, and it might do weird stuff. So an example of this, because you're probably like, what the f are you talking about? This guy is crazy and doesn't know anything. Honestly, if you're bleeding brakes, probably doesn't matter, probably ever. But I'm gonna throw this piece of information out there because some people will do brake pads and a brake flush at the same time. It's very common to do those at the same time. And there's certain vehicles, like a 211 Mercedes, that if you have the brake pads out, caliper out, and you open one of the doors, it turns on the ABS pump and sends pressure to the calipers. And if you have the caliper off, if your hand's in there, whatever, it will shoot the piston out because that's a lot of pressure. It's a certain kind of ABS that Mercedes used for a few years. They don't do it anymore. Just get in the habit of just locking the car, putting the keys on your tool bench, on your toolbox somewhere. Just an easy thing, get in the habit of, to prevent something weird from happening in case you have one of those cars that does weird shit like a 211 Mercedes. You don't want to have that happen. It would be very bad. So yeah, anyways, that's just a random tidbit of information that will probably never be useful for most people because they won't have a car that is important on. But it's a good habit. Just do it. Alright, I've been talking for too long. This video is probably too long. So again, thanks for watching. Love this brake bleeding tool. Recommend getting it if you need to do brake flushes. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. And as Josh always says,